Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Table Talk on this fine Thursday evening. Hope you've had a great day. Don't know about you, I've just been outside clapping for the NHS. Well done to all the NHS and everybody that's looking after us, the care workers, the ambulance workers, the people that are keeping food on our table, the factory workers, everybody that's just rising in this crisis. Big shout out today to the old soldier who's raised 15 million at 99 years of age, walking around his garden. What a great story of inspiration, and we want to welcome you. Just looking down on my feed, who's coming on? Jimmy Kay is on. Paul Fulton from Blackpool is watching. Hi, Paul. Come on, let's get some shares, get some likes. Let's get a couple of hundred people on. It's great to see Kevin's on from Gateshead. Good to see you, Kev. Elizabeth's on. Gainer's on. Come on, everybody. Keep sharing, keep liking, and let's get a few people on. We've got a great night tonight. And we were going, as we advertised last week, we were going to have Pastor Glyn Barrett, but he's had to reschedule for next week. So we have got a special guest for you. Somebody who's been a great friend of mine for many, many years, and we're going to be just introducing him in a few moments. And we're just going to have an interview. We're going to have a chat. We're going to talk about his journey, our journey, and tell you a few things. Anne Martin's on. Hi. Andrea's on. Margaret Pepper. Jill Evans is watching. My son's watching from over there and on his line. Claire Harrison. Chris Coulson from Gateshead. Hi, everybody. Phil Harrison's saying hi. Gives a thumbs up. Phil Denny is watching. NHS worker Phil Denny. Big shout out. We're clapping you. Alison Worsley's on. But Alison Worsley's like the Holy Spirit. She gets everywhere. Susie Islip's watching. Hi, Susie. Sarah Jane Lowe is watching. She's probably baking or cooking something up. Philippa Johnson. Hi, Philippa. Are you okay? Hope you've all had a great day. What incredible weather. I've had a few Skype meetings today, a few Zoom meetings, but I've also been for a run on the golf course at the back of our house, done a little bit of gardening, and but I've been excited about what's going to happen tonight. Great to see the Deans on. Michelle Sparks on from Salford. Anybody else? Michelle. Good to see you, Michelle has joined us. Matthew Lawson's on. Oh, the family's arriving. The Lawsons are in. Hi, Andy Thorpe. Hope Lydia's watching too. Spencer Jones, Paul Ellison from Gateshead. Hi, Paul. Jimmy Kay's giving me the thumbs up. The Kay brothers are online. Well, it's great to see you. My wife was she's waiting, can't wait, watching in the next room. Make me a brew. Oh, she did do before, and I've got one here. So Rachel Prescott, Sandy Hampson. Great. Well, we're building up. We're up to 130 viewers now. Let's get up to 150. So tonight is a special night, Table Talk. Last week, me and Georgina talked about our journey of the last 30 years since we got married and being part of different churches, and then ultimately for the last 14 and a half years building King's Church. Thank you for all the nice comments that you had. You know, we sometimes... we presume that you know our journey, and a lot of people have texted us back and Instagrammed us and said, look, how incredible it was just to hear about our journey. And so what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, we're going to be interviewing and talking to some people who've been really influential in our journey, people that have been friends of mine and Georgina's, people that have preached at King's from time to time, and people that have just are really good at what they do around the nation. So we're just going to wait for one or two more people to jump on. We're just pushing 150 viewers now. Hi, Steve Hardman. Oh, Noah Lawson's on, so the whole Lawson clan are joining. Hi, Carrie from Blackpool. Great to see you. Claire Fizzbomb's on. Hi, Fizzbomb. Emma Bars on from Blackpool. Good to see Emma. That's a terrible Northern Irish accent, but that's the best that can do. Alison Worsley tweets more than Donald Trump. Chris Jones is on. Well, we're nearly there. So are you ready for us to introduce our guest tonight? Well, listen, there's loads of people we could have invited on. We're going to invite different people on. But tonight we have invited on Mr. Mark Ritchie. He will be on screen any moment now. Well, let's put our hands together to get together. I don't know what that is, tongues. Together and welcome Mr. Mark Ritchie to King's Gate Table Talk. Whoa! Mark, have you unmuted? Mark?
I have. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, just stay still, mate. We know the Wi-Fi hasn't got to the Midlands yet where you live. Listen, Mark, it's great to have you on, and you've frozen a bit, so stay still. If you can Mark, just tell us a little bit about your family, a little bit about your background before we get on to how we met and how we know each other. Tell us a bit about who you are, your family, and your background.
So, my name's Mark Ritchie. I'm Scottish, and basically I am married and I have got 2 kids, Jordan and Kezia. So can you hear me okay? Is it coming over all right?
Yeah, just talk a bit slower, but keep going.
Basically, I am working in Nottingham. So I'm based in Nottingham, and I have been living in Nottingham for about 21 years, which is pretty amazing, yeah.
Wow. Go on.
I was going to say, I did think for a little while about maybe coming to work with you, Derek, at Bolton, but God told me clearly in a dream to stay away from false prophets. So that's what I did.
Listen, the true story of that is you wanted 2 million a year, and we couldn't afford that at King's, so you had to stay in the Midlands. So tell us a bit about Tamsin, because she's by far the better half. So tell us a bit about Tamsin.
So basically, Tamsin is working for a church here in Nottingham. So our church is called Heart Church. And basically, Tamsin is, yeah, you are right. She is my better half. There's no denying that. But she wakes up every morning and thanks God that she's married to me, because she realizes the blessing that I am. She heads up the compassion ministries in our church in Nottingham. So she does an amazing job with that. She's only been doing that for 6 months. Before that, she was working at a charity called Safe Families, which I think they've got some near you guys. So she's done that, and she's very good at it.
I mean, we've been friends a long time, Mark. Tell us about your earliest memories of me and you first meeting each other, and a few of the things we did together in the early days. I
don't know if you would be honest like this, but the very first time we met each other, I definitely did not like you, and I'm pretty sure you did not like me. You were like this guy. I mean, I know you've really changed. But you were like this bolshy guy that basically knew everything. And I saw you at a youth camp, and I said, who's that guy then? And they said, oh, he's Derek, and yeah, he's a bit of a big shot. And I remember I said to them, he's a big shot in his own head, yeah? And but obviously I got that wrong, because you're actually a very humble man, yeah?
No, that's right. Well, I remember first meeting you, and I think he was at youth camp, and I said to somebody, who's that big head? And they said, oh, it's Mark Ritchie. And you know, somebody said, he's the darling of the Bible college. And I thought to myself, I'm going to put him in his place first chance I get. So, it wasn't a great first meeting, Mark, was it? Let's be honest.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking, I think the first time we ever sort of really spent any time together was on a mission together. Yeah. And I just remember it was a mission with a guy called Kevin Pimblott. And I just remember like that I really saw a different side to you. I saw that you were this compassionate guy. I saw that you really cared about people. And I just really decided in that mission, this is a guy that I want to kind of spend time with, because I really saw something valuable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was in those early missions, probably early 90s, where we got to know each other. and appreciate each other. And we've got a lot of history and a lot of stories in them early days. Tell us some of the stories from our early meetings, those early days of ministry.
Oh, mate. There's a lot, because obviously we then went on to Youth Alive, and we worked together on Youth Alive. And I mean, the stories from that are just there's so many. I remember when we were at youth camp and we were all doing that thing where we would jump off the stage and crowd surf. And I remember, all of the team jumping out into the crowd and the crowd catching us and passing us along. And it was amazing. And then I remember you jumping out into the crowd and the whole crowd partied. People were literally like, no way am I catching him. Except one lovely little girl who tried to catch you. Oh. Did she have to go to A&E? I think she had to go to A.
She had to go to A&E, yeah. I think I sprained both the wrists. As a 14-year-old, 30-odd-year-old man dived on her from the stage who called himself a pastor. Those were days when we got up to a lot of mischief in ministry. And great early formative days. And I think that's where we saw, and anybody that was around at those times saw the gift that was in you to communicate and be brilliant. I remember I have a couple of standout memories of, I think it was Battle for Britain in Bristol, probably about 92, around that time. Yeah. And we'd had a really difficult few days. We were down by the quayside. We had big events in that old warehouse at night, and it hadn't gone well, particularly during the days. We weren't getting a breakthrough, and the crowd at night were quite hostile, and it just felt very, very tense. And I remember Kevin Pimblott saying, "Mark, you're up for tonight." And I was all looking at you, and it's one of the few times ever I ever thought, I am so glad I'm not preaching tonight. Give it to the Scotsman and let him get fed to the lions. And I remember you going off with your Bible in the afternoon and coming back about 6 o'clock. And that night you preached up an absolute storm. You had these total atheists eating out of the palm of your hand for about 40 minutes. And when you made the appeal, the whole place it felt like the whole place came forward, and I was just stood at the back, and I just thought, and I think that's the first time I just thought, wow, this guy has got something beyond just an ability to preach. He's got something on his life to communicate with people, and we've been great friends ever since. I've got a story about something you did to me that all these stories. I'm going to get back at you tonight, Matt. I remember it was probably 1993. Me and you were the guest speakers at Great Wallstead Youth Camp. You were preaching one night, I was preaching the next night, and you were preaching one night, and it was about 9 o'clock. It was just coming to the end of the service, and you said to the crowd, and I've never forgiven you. You said to the crowd, and if you want a word from God, Pastor Derek is going to prophesy over everybody that comes forward tonight. And then you finished the meeting, finished in prayer, handed the mic back to the person that was leading, and then you walked off, and I think you went back to your room. So I was stuck. About 150 people came forward that night, and I'm prophesying them over. I'm prophesying over all these people till about 1 o'clock in the morning while you're in bed. So, we've had some funny stories. Are you still there, Mark? Are you okay? Are we having a few technical problems?
I remember. I think the last 5, you just sort of were making it up, weren't you? You were just like, the Lord wants me breathing.
Are you okay? Are you still there?
I'm still there. I'm maybe going to move and see if I move. Is my internet a little bit dodgy?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you keep freezing.
Oh, okay. I'm moving to see if this is going to help.
Get near the router.
Oh. Yeah, no.
Everybody that's watching, this is just Mark talking to Tamsin as he's trying to find a better place for his Wi-Fi in his house. I think that's a bit better. So we've had some great stories, great times, great fun. Before we get on to a little bit about more of what you do now, just for fun, I'm going to ask you a few things called true or false. And the only way you can answer this is true or false. Okay? We don't want any so are you ready? Okay? And these are the rumours, okay? Were you expelled from Bible college?
No, come on. No, false. False.
Oh, okay. Okay. Were you and some of your youth leaders arrested or nearly arrested on suspicion of terrorism one night after the youth meeting?
Oh, that is true. That is true.
That is true. You and the half the youth group were arrested for terrorism. Oh, you have to tell that story, Mark. We can't.
That is true. It's because when I left Bible college, I went to Barnsley, yeah, and basically we had this youth group that were just like full of crazy people, and we took them out for a midnight walk, and basically, oh man, I never realized, but one of the guys had got like a balaclava on, and he had an air gun. And just before he came for the midnight walk, he'd gone into the petrol station to get a Mars bar, but he took the gun in with him. And so when he left, the woman phoned the police, and oh man, we got into so much trouble. It was bad. It was bad.
And did you I know you didn't get arrested, but did you get cautioned off the police?
Yeah, I got taken into the police car. I got taken in the police car, and they were like telling us, like, you are in so much trouble. And I just remember saying to them, please don't tell my senior pastor. And they were like, oh, he already knows. He wants to see you. As soon as this is over, he wants to see you. That's what was happening.
Okay. All right. Another one, true or false. And this is confession time, Matt. This is good for you. Because of a story that you tell all over the nation about me. I have people ringing me to tell me that story. Have you ever sworn at a football match?
True.
Oh, right. You can tell the story about me. But just for those King's people watching, it wasn't about me swearing at all. Go on, Mark. Tell the story.
You would never swear. No, this is 100% true, and it's one of the reasons why I love you. But you basically got us tickets for Bolton against Chelsea, and we were sitting quite near the Chelsea fans. And in the first half, Bolton scored 1-0, and you went absolutely crazy, and the Holy Spirit just left. And then the second half, Chelsea equalised with 3 minutes of the game to go, and then you were not happy, and I had to keep grabbing your arm and say, Derek, calm down, calm down. And then with the last kick of the game, Chelsea scored, and it was Bolton 1, Chelsea 2, and you got up and you bolted to the fence and you screamed at the Chelsea fans. And I was like, Derek, do not say anything you're going to regret. You are a pastor. You're a husband. And basically, you just screamed and you shouted that, I hope you get stuck in traffic. I was like, wow, what a great chant. A great chant.
That is called restraint, Mark. And okay, last one. Now, this is one that your mum's asked me to ask you. Do you take a wee dram? Listen, you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. You're Scottish. We know anyway. Listen, Mark.
Is that orange juice?
Yeah.
Is that orange?
Do you drink orange juice? Yeah. Listen,
Yes.
you, from those early days of knowing you, of Battle for Britain and all the missions we did together, and you certainly had a gift on your life to just connect with people. But that gift for you hasn't taken the normal route of other people where they just become pastors and preach in churches. For you, it took you down a whole different way of communicating the gospel. Tell us a little bit about what you did with that, because it kind of didn't fit in. It was very hard to classify what you are. Some people say, is Mark Ritchie a pastor? Well, no. Is he a preacher? Well, yeah, but he's not just a church preacher. Is he a comedian? Well, he's funny, but he's not just stand-up. And then his shows and, seeing you at Edinburgh Fringe a few years ago, which we'll talk about in a minute. So tell us how about that gift unworked itself through your life.
No, it's really good. Great question. I mean, the thing is, I've always felt like I want to get in front of as many unchurched people as possible. And you look at some evangelists and they're all the time, they're just basically with Christians. 97% of the people they speak to are Christians. And so I just really wanted to get in front of unsaved people. And I remember going to see like a show by a guy called Dave Gorman, who's like a comedian. And he had a message that he wanted to communicate, but he was not, he was not like preaching. He was communicating, telling stories, but he was still getting a message over. And I just remember God speaking to me and saying, I want you to go and have a go at that. And so I just started to try and communicate God through telling story. And they're funny, they're moving, but actually it's getting the message out there. And so I began to do these shows, and we're doing them in front of like crowds that are like 60, 70% unchurched people. And I'm excited about that because I really want to get the Christian message, not in front of the church so much, but to get the message out to people that desperately need it, which is like the unsaved kind of crowd. And so we've started to do these comedy festivals, and we've started to do the show, and we've toured the show around Britain, America, Australia, and people are really laughing, people are loving it, but we're also seeing loads of people connect with God. So it's so exciting.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, a few years ago, if you remember, I think you did Edinburgh Fringe for the first time, and me and Georgina were in Scotland, so we came to see you. And I mean, Edinburgh Fringe, if you ever get a chance to go, anybody that's listening, it's absolutely brilliant. And it's just a marketplace of arts and theatre and comedy. And we went that week to watch two Christian comedians. One was a Salvation Army guy, and he bombed. He really did. And the only reason I didn't walk out was because I sat on the front row. But then we we came to see you, and you did brilliant. And what I really liked, and what was edgy, I felt, you let people heckle, and you wanted them to heckle. And when people shouted out and that, you just like rode with it and went. And I just thought that's, happily, we don't get too many hecklers in church. My mum shouts out occasionally, but that's about it. But you were getting, people that were just totally unsaved, sat in the building, listening to you talk for an hour, and made them laugh, but certainly brought the gospel in. You didn't hold back on that. They knew at the end of the night you were a Christian, and that was what your life was about. So just tell us a little bit about the journey of that and coping with hecklers and people like that, because that's not normal preaching, is it?
No. A little while ago, I got the chance to either speak in a church in Burgess Hill or a pub in the East End of Belfast, and the guy that asked me to do the Belfast pub, he said to me, "Listen, you'll probably get heckled. You might get stuff thrown at you. People are going to be kind of upset." And I just remember looking at these two invites, this lovely church in Burgess Hill and this pub in Belfast, and God just saying to me, "Go to the pub." And I just remember thinking, I wanted to point up to heaven and go, "You go to the pub. You go. Never mind me going. You go." And but I did. I went to the pub in Belfast, and while I was preaching, making them laugh, and it was really good fun. And then I started to talk about God. And when I started to talk about God, 10 guys got up and went to the toilet at the same time. They just stood right up and just left. And I remember thinking, wow, Billy Graham gets them coming to the front, and I get them going to the bog. Do you know what I mean? I get them going to the toilet. But listen, there's a passion inside of me to see the gospel impact people that are so far from heaven. And I've just so many amazing stories. A couple of girls came to my show because someone just told them to hear this funny Scottish guy. And basically they came, and I saw them later, and both of them were like self-harmer girls. Their arms were absolutely shredded. And these two girls, they laughed the whole way. But when it came to talking about God, they started crying. And then they actually responded at the end. And they talked about how they came to see a comedian, but they got this life-changing message. And it's so powerful when you see the gospel go to people. They've not even got words to describe what is happening to them. They can't say, oh, I felt you were anointed tonight, because they don't even know what anointed means. Do you know what I'm saying? And I honestly think that, like, it is such a privilege to see people that are so lost and so far away get the chance to come into the arms of God. It's amazing.
What do you say, Mark, to people that say, and you must have had it, I mean, you know, I've had it over the years for the way I preach sometimes, is that there's no place for that in the church. There's no place. The gospel is serious. You know, it's hell or heaven. It's, you know, and this whole comedy thing, it trivialize the meaning of the gospel. What do you say to them? How do you respond to that?
No, it's really good, and I do get it. I mean, I was in Northern Ireland a couple of months ago, and a guy went on social media and absolutely shredded me. He absolutely, like, you know, cut me up and said, he actually said the phrase, idiots like this are the reason why the church is not growing. You know, that's a pretty harsh thing for someone to say. But, you know, the truth is that, like, you know, I really believe that, like, the humor opens people up, and then the message never changes. You know, the method does change. We do change the method. Listen, honest truth, Derek, we're going to have to think about the method right now because, you know, of what's happening with the virus and stuff. The method does change, but the message never changes. And the message is still the same. Jesus died on the cross, washed people clean with his blood. And I'm actually quite a traditional gospel preacher. I do not hold back on the absolute message of the cross. I don't hold back on repentance. So I still go for all of that. But what I just do is I use humor to open people up. And so I say this all the time. Church, we need to think of different ways of getting this generation in front of Christ. You know, the 4 guys that carried their friend, and they had to lower their friend down through the roof because the house was so busy. You know, they had to think about a different way of getting their friend in front of Jesus. And we've got to think of a different way of getting this generation in front of Jesus.
Yeah, wow, so powerful. I mean, I've heard you on many occasions, and the other part of the role of an evangelist, which I think you would say you are, is not just to do evangelism, but to equip the saints to do evangelism. You're real good at encouraging people to get involved, people that don't feel they can do it, people that feel it's for the professionals. But you make it kind of accessible, and that's kind of been your story. One of the things that's always impressed me is wherever you've gone, you've always asked people to share their stories. You know, you said, write into me, tell me stories, your funny stories, that you've always been able then to take a funny story to open people up, and then while they're laughing to bring some incredible truth. I think, you know, over the 33 years I've been in ministry, I wrote down this afternoon in preparation for talking to you tonight, my 10 most funniest moments in ministry. And in my 10 most funniest moments in ministry, you're there 6 times. Of the things that were done because of the stories that you told. I mean, I remember, you know, in the some of the early meltdowns and Northern Youth Camp when we did stuff together, some of the stories you used to tell, and there's loads that stick in my mind. But I just to humour me, if nobody else likes him, just tell the story for our people that are watching about the old couple that were looking after the dog and what happened. Do you remember
that? Yeah. Wow, that is going back a bit. So basically, lovely old couple. I think they were like in the mid-80s. Basically, their next door neighbour said to them, "Oh, listen, you know, would you look after our golden Labrador when we go to Mallorca for holiday?" So the old couple were like, yeah, no problem. So then, so they look after the dog, but on day 3, the dog dies. The dog is dead. So this old couple are just absolutely traumatized. They're looking after their neighbor's dog, and the dog's dead. And so they phone up the vet, and they're absolutely panicking. They're crying. They're upset. And the vet just calms them down and said, "Listen, if you get the dog to me, I'll look after it. I'll bury it. I'll sort it. I'll do the paperwork." So great. So anyway, this old couple, they didn't want to take the car. So what they did is they put the dead dog in a suitcase. They put dead dog in the suitcase, and they take the suitcase and they get on the underground, and they're going on the underground to go to this vet's. And then it comes to their stop, and they get off, and they've got this case, and it's pretty heavy because it's got a dead dog in it. And they get to like the elevator thing, and basically it's broken. So they're having to do the stairs, and this old couple dragging this case up the stairs. And this young guy comes up behind them, and the young guy says to them, "Oh, guys, let me help you with that." And so basically they say, "Okay, they help." And so the young guy takes the case. Anyway, the young guy up the stairs, through the barrier, the young guy nicks the suitcase. He steals the suitcase. And I just love that, the thought of that young guy getting back to his room and opening the case. It's like a dead dog. What the? I love it.
I wonder what they said to the neighbour when they got home. Oh.
I mean, that's the brilliant bit. It is like this people come back from their holidays, and this old couple have not only the dead dog, but somebody's nicked the dog. It's like brilliant. I love it.
So just getting back to some of your communication at the moment, is it any different preparing for a church preach on a Sunday, come to our church and do a Sunday morning, Sunday night, and doing like more of your show that you do in a theatre? Do you get more nervous about the theatre side of things? Do you prepare differently for that?
Yeah, because honestly, like a show, people like in church, I mean, I'm sure this happens with you, Pastor Derek, but you've got people in the church who are for you, they're with you, they're cheering you on. They're like, "Yes, that's a great point, Pastor Derek. Where did you get that, Pastor Derek? Did you get that off the website, Pastor Derek? Have you been on a website nicking material again, Pastor Derek?" But obviously, that's all just a joke. But, when you do these shows, you don't have anybody in the crowd helping you. So literally, if you're not funny, you're just dying. So sometimes it can be pretty hard. It can be pretty harsh. So you get really nervous. But once you've got the first couple of jokes out and people have laughed, and then you're off, it's good. But preparing, I do get much more nervous for the shows than I do for like preaching. Yeah, every time.
Yeah, I remember once being in a meeting where you were preaching and you were coming to the appeal, and you had people. I think it was a youth rally. You had people in the palm of your hand. You were really going for the gospel, and I was sat on the front row. I don't think I was leading the meeting, but I was part of the team. And you were talking about the thief on the cross, and you were saying, talking about putting things off and procrastination. And you got to that part where Jesus turned the thief onto the cross, and Jesus said to the thief on the cross, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." And you said, Jesus turned to the thief on the cross and said, "Tomorrow you will be with me." So the question I want to ask, what was Jesus and the thief doing for the 24 hours before paradise? I don't know if Mark Ritchie was bringing in purgatory or some other... I can remember sat on the front row trying to put my fist in my mouth just to try and stop me from laughing in the middle of this appeal, and people still got saved. So it's...
Oh, no.
I
don't know. Can you remember that time when we had the Australian guy come, and the Australian preacher guy, and he basically was amazing the whole conference, and then he decided that he wanted to prophesy over the Youth Alive team, and he prophesied over Glenn, Simon Jarvis, Paul Gibbs, Mark Ritchie, and then he prophesied over this completely random guy called Tim, and he didn't prophesy over you.
Listen, Mark, it's been the story of my life. Oh, who cares anyway? Also, so many great stories. I was talking to my son this afternoon about you, and he mentioned something about a story you told that I hadn't heard. So maybe you could tell me something about. I know you've got 2 children, and Kezia, your daughter, she was going, I think, to Australia or on some mission or away on some placement, and you had a bit of an experience in the barbers. So tell us about that.
Oh man, that's good. That is good. So no, what happened is Kezia went to Canada to do an evangelism course, and she was 18. And basically, Tamsin was completely upset and crying a lot. Our little girl's going away. So I had to have a talk with Tamsin and say, listen, we're taking her to the airport. Don't cry. So we get to the airport, and I decide to have a little pray at the airport. My daughter's going to Canada. So anyway, I pray. Tamsin is crying. Kezia's crying. My son Jordan is thinking about Nando's. Do you know what I mean? He's not crying. And anyway, Kezia, off she goes. And we drive back up to Nottingham. What I didn't know is that Kezia's plane was delayed. So I went to the barbers, and I'm sitting in this real proper man's barbers, and my phone pings, and I didn't even think about it. And I picked my phone up, and it's a text from Kezia, my daughter, who's on the plane. And basically she says, just to say, Dad, that's me leaving. Here are 3 things I've always wanted to tell you. And it was the most beautiful words you could ever imagine. And in that barbers, I honestly started bawling my eyes out. I started like sobbing. And what was hilarious was, all these guys sitting around, they were just like looking at each other. They were like, what is this guy doing? He's crying. And then the barber finished with the guy he was cutting, and he turned and he goes, who's next? And all these guys were like, him, let him go. So basically, I was able to get my hair cut very fast. It was very cool.
Yeah, I can imagine just that, not good with emotion. So just tell us, what have the Ritchies been doing during isolation? Because you're often on the road, travelling, doing your shows, preaching out. So during the isolation, I think we're week 4 now, aren't we? What have you been doing?
Well, I've been making pretty stupid videos for Instagram. That's what I've been doing. So basically, every couple of nights I've been putting a little video out there on my Instagram stories, and a lot of people have been getting back to me. There's been quite a lot of fun ones, because this is absolutely honestly true. I got a phone call from a pastor guy who rang me up, and I don't know this guy very well, and he was just kind of chatting away, and he just said to me, "Oh, who are you on lockdown with?" Right? And as a complete joke, I just went, "Oh, I'm on lockdown with Sandra from The Office," right? Just completely joking. And anyway, it just goes quiet. And this pastor just said, oh, I thought you would have been in lockdown with your family. And I was like, oh, no. Honestly, he had believed me, and he thought I was on lockdown with Sandra. I don't know any Sandras. Okay, Derek. Yeah. I don't know any Sandra.
No, it's funny. I was in just before lockdown. I was in a leaders meeting, and there was a lot of leaders from around the country. And over lunch, I had my dinner with somebody I'd never met before, a pastor. He was very intense and very uptight and intense, and intense people, you know, they're not my sweet spot. And he was also foreign. I think he was actually Scottish. And he said to me, brother, he said, what do you think God is saying to the church through coronavirus? And then he looked at me, and I felt under pressure to come up with this massive spiritual answer from Habakkuk. And I just said to him, wash your hands. And he looked at me like I'm the biggest lightweight in the world, and I've had no spirituality. It wasn't what I think he was looking for. I think he was looking for a prophecy, a poem, 2 readings, and a word from God. And I just said, wash your hands. Listen, to bring us to the coronavirus now, and obviously the church is in lockdown, or the buildings are, the church is still functioning. But you know, at the other side of this, and as an evangelist, you're always thinking about what's next and where will people be at. Do you think the church's message is going to have to change slightly? Because when we come out of this, it won't be like a day, like we're out. It will be a gradual process. But do you think this will have left anything on the nation's psyche regarding fear and doubt? You know, how it took basically a couple of weeks for half the planet to be housebound because of something we couldn't see and we have no cure for. As smart as okay. So, what do you think? What do you think the Christian message will look like the other side of this? What do you think people will be asking?
Yeah, no, it's good. I honestly think, you know, like sometimes we've been through a few wars and stuff like that, like you know, kind of like after September the 11th and all that. But a lot of that stuff didn't impact us like this has impacted us. And it's really affected our Tuesdays. It's affected our Wednesdays. It's like it's really hit us. And I honestly think that there are a lot of people out there where they really realize that the stuff that they built their life on has crumbled so easily. It's so fragile. And I honestly think we're in a situation where it's like, a lot of people, it's like that story Jesus told about built their life on sand, and they've built their life on something that's given way and that's just all come tumbling down. And I think that there are going to be people asking, what can we build our life on that is a strong foundation, a sure foundation? And, you know, I think the church has got an opportunity to say, you know, we've not built our house on sand. We've built our house on the rock. God has not been shaken by the virus. And I really believe that this is an opportunity where I genuinely think that the unchurched kind of are going to be asking us, what is it that your life is built on? Because I want some of that. I think we could be moving into one of the greatest gospel opportunities that we've ever seen or imagined, that people are ready to get saved because they've realized that just like what you said, Derek, it only took a few days and the whole thing came tumbling down. And for some people, I mean, it's funny, and we've all seen the funny WhatsApp videos, but for some people, you know, when McDonald's was shut, it was like the whole world came crashing down. You know, some people, it's like this really has hit them between the eyes. It's like this has everything that they've sort of built their life on has come crashing down, and they're looking at us and we're like saying, oh, we've built our house on the rock. We've built our house on solid ground.
Great. That's brilliant, Mark. You know, one of our pastors, we had a campus pastors meeting this morning, and one of our pastors was talking about every Friday at King's, we have a day of prayer and fasting just till the end of the coronavirus. And one of the things that we're praying and fasting for as a church tomorrow is that we're praying for the end of coronavirus, not just for how we handle it, but to pray for God to bring a supernatural ending to this. Because, you know, people are dying. Thousands of people are dying around the world every day. And God has an opinion about that. And so we're praying that tomorrow. And Pastor Jeff brought that this morning. By the way, Pastor Jeff from Wigan was one of the people that was mortified when McDonald's closed because he's in there every day. Ronald McDonald is, to him, is the fourth part of the Trinity. So McDonald's was a big deal for Pastor Jeff from Wigan, but I think he's got over it. But it's going to give the other side of coronavirus so many opportunities, even though the coronavirus itself has brought so many difficulties. But can you imagine, I was just thinking the other day, if this had happened in the 70s, where there was no social media, where closed, and all you could do is pick a landline up and talk to somebody, we would never have been able to do this. People would have been, I mean, people think they're isolated now. If this had been the 1970s, people would have felt 10 times worse. So thank God for social media. Thank God that we can even talk to somebody in Nottingham on a Thursday night and you can encourage us. So, you know, but I think as a pastor, thinking about the people of God, the other side of this as well. You know, my prayer, or one of my prayers about it, is that people really appreciate that for Sunday when we can get back together and meet in God's house, that it's a privilege to meet together. And, you know, we don't take it, well, if there's nothing good on telly and I don't need to do any gardening and, you know, I don't want to go to IKEA, I might go to church. That we'll build, you know, believers that just don't forsake the meeting together, getting to God's house. And now we know it's not all about meeting in a building once on a Sunday, but that is part of where we can encourage each other. We can worship together. We can hear God's word. We can learn in together as a family. And so I'm really looking forward to that as a pastor and somebody who's leading the 6 churches. Mark, we're not done, but we're coming to a conclusion now. So I guess you're like me. I'm in the garden. I was running on the golf course today, doing bits of shopping and things. And I'm thinking, okay, how is this going to change my ministry at the other side of this? What themes do I need to minister into? How do I need to help people? How do I need to make people feel connected? Those are the questions. What are the questions you're asking as an evangelist for how you're going to change what you do when it all gets back to whatever normal looks like at the other side?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly like you. I'm asking like some pretty big questions. And I guess what I'm thinking is, you know, we don't really know like when we're going to be able to properly gather together. And we don't know, like you said brilliantly about it's going to be a gradual thing. They're not just going to open the doors and say life's just back to normal. The questions I'm asking is, you know, if we could not have Sunday services, like, is the church equipped enough to reach the lost without just, you know, without Sunday services? And you know, do people right now in their houses, do they have the equipment to lead people to Christ? Would they know how to do that? Have we become a bit dependent on program? And I'm asking myself some of these questions, you know, have we done a good job of like equipping people to actually lead someone to Christ? You know, Derek, we were laughing earlier, but when you and me were on those early missions, you know, everybody on the team was taught How do you lead someone to Jesus? How do you start a conversation? You know, maybe some of that stuff, we've lost it a little bit in the flash programs that we've got, in the good stuff that we're doing. And none of it's bad, but maybe we need to get back to, has every believer got the equipment? Do I know the basic gospel? Do I know what it means? What does being washed in the blood of the Lamb, what does that actually mean in 2020 for my neighbor? So, you know, these are some of the things that I'm beginning to like think through, you know.
Yeah. I think these are questions that they're not going to go away, and we can't stick our head in the sand and pretend, let's just get back to normal the other side of this. I think it's going to create a lot of uncertainty, as you've already alluded to, and I think we don't lead people well if we're not thinking about these things. Okay, just pulling this to a conclusion, Mark. There's people watching. There's about 140 people watching, or 140 devices. Some people will be families watching. Some of them are Christians. Some of them maybe not Christians. Some of them we've seen in the past. Maybe they're away from God at this time. Maybe, you know, when they were a teenager, they went to the youth camps and loved God, and now maybe they're in their 40s and it doesn't seem to make sense anymore because of life. You've got 2 minutes to screen, to talk to the people who are watching now, to say whatever you want to say to them. Go.
Yeah, I think a lot of us who maybe feel like we're kind of like horrendously in this time of limitation. You know, a lot of people are feeling locked down, and it's a sense in which we're all living in this place where, you know, everything's minimizing, our world's becoming smaller. But, you know, I guess I would want to speak to absolutely everyone that's listening. I would want to say, you know, lock down, rise up. The Bible says in Isaiah, rise up with wings as eagles. And, you know, I honestly believe for everyone that's listening, that God's purpose and intention for us at this time is not for us to limit ourselves, but it's for us to rise up and become everything we were created and designed to be. That actually, you know, people that are far from God, God is really desperately wanting to make a connection with them again, and that, you know, there's an opportunity for you to reach a new height in your faith. Maybe everything else feels like it's limited and minimized, but actually, just like it says in Isaiah, you can rise up, you can see the heights of faith. For those of us that are Christians, you know, we can maybe see new heights in patience and in kindness, and new heights in compassion. And that, you know, everybody else is talking about lockdown, but I think, you know, as a church and as a people, we can talk about rise up. You know, we can actually see new heights in our kindness. Can I see a new height in my kindness for my community and my neighborhood? Can I see a new height in my patience for the people around me? Can I see a new height in my peace? A lot of people are feeling agitated and feeling really broken. You know, just to say, Derek, I did a podcast called Soul Focus, which is about speaking to your soul, and it's about leading your emotions. And, you know, if people go on Spotify, or if they go on where they get their podcast from, they can see it. Soul Focus by Mark Ritchie. And it really talks about us leading ourselves well, leading our emotions, leading our anxiety. You know, I honestly think the world would say lockdown, but I honestly believe that we can say rise up, that we can see new heights in God like we've never seen before.
Brilliant, Mark. Absolutely brilliant. I was talking to the church on Sunday about isolation. Can be isolation, but make your isolation your preparation for whatever happens next. Okay, Kings, before Mark goes, this is a challenge to you. Mark shared tonight. We've not had him at Kings for a couple of years. So at the end of this, I'm wondering whether do I invite him to Kings on a Sunday sometime next year. So if you want Mark to come to Kings on a Sunday, what, you press like. No, press like now, and let's see how many likes we can get going. If you think no, don't invite him, give us a thumbs. No, just press like.
Oh, man.
And it will be absolutely brilliant. So listen, Mark, the thing is with humour, and you've got to know sometimes when the humour's got to be put on the shelf. And let me just say this to you. It's a privilege and an honour to be your friend, to see what God has done with you and is doing through you in these days, that you've gone down a slightly different road to most leaders, and God's opened up, to see it. Just when me and Georgina saw you at the Edinburgh Fringe, I just thought, I can't think of anybody better in the Christian world that I want to put up in front of these people to communicate something. And so we're right behind you. We think you're awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep annoying religious people. Keep talking to people who just don't think the church is for them, don't think religion is for them, don't think anything of Jesus. Just keep being real, and we're right behind you. We love you. And the amount of thumbs that are going up now, Jo Nichols, she's put 436 thumbs up here. She don't even come. She's an Anglican, but we love the Anglicans too. So it looks like, Mark, you're going to get an invite to King sometime next year, and we'll have a great time. And it's the pinnacle of anybody's career, speaking at King.
Exactly.
Never mind the Edinburgh Fringe, it's King, so it's absolutely brilliant to have you. Just stay there, because we're going to ask you to pray for us as we finish. Excuse me. Just last thing for Kings, just remember, Kings, to log on Sunday morning. Our Sunday morning service is going to be awesome. We've got some stuff happening for Multicampus. We're going to let you know about a few things. Also, remember prayer and fasting. Tomorrow, we're going to be praying right over, we're going to pray specifically for COVID-19, that God removes it, that God brings it to a conclusion. We're not putting up with it. We want it done. And so whether you're fasting just one meal or all day, please do that. And keep connecting with us. Keep coming on to Table Talk. We've had great connection with our Sunday services. Keep connecting with your campus pastors. There's lots of things happening midweek, courses and quiz nights and all that kind of stuff. So please, in this time of isolation, don't be isolated. Stay connected, because we love to see you. So, Mark, we are nearly done, but we want you to pray for us. And pray for everybody that's watching online, and then we'll just say goodbye to you. But Mark, just pray for us now, if you would.
Yeah, Father, I just want to thank you. I know, God, that I have a lot of jokes with Derek, but Father, you know that I honor him and that I respect him, and I pray for a new season of anointing and blessing on him. And I just pray, God, for his family. And I also pray for Kings. I pray for everyone that's listening now, God. I just pray, holy God, that you would just absolutely prepare them for something incredible. God, I really pray that this would be the beginning of a wonderful time where they really understand, God, that they are a significant church in our nation, and that, God, that this is a significant time. I pray for masses to come to faith through this wonderful church. I pray, God, that we would see many, many come to know Jesus. That, Lord, that we would absolutely, that the harvest would be incredible. That we would look back on this time and say, wow, we thought it was bad, but what the devil meant for bad, God has meant for good, and that there's a harvest, and that there would be many souls saved. We ask this in the powerful name of Jesus. And God, I pray that you would just, Father God, that this wonderful church would be a prophetic voice to the nation, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks, Mark. Give our love to Tamsin and the kids, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. For anybody that wants to follow Mark on Instagram or Facebook, please find out. He runs a charity called the 73rd Trust. So if you want to check them out, Google them, find out, support Mark. He's a brilliant person doing loads of great stuff, and we love him dearly. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Kings. Stay connected. We love you, Lord. From me and Georgina and everybody at Table Talk, God bless you, and we will see you on Sunday morning. Good night.